I obviously love hearing that the influencer, even, just through the lens of being the content and the creative, was the highest ROI. And I don't know if this is like the cynic in me or the, or hearing the critical audience. I'm curious, actually. You could say that and say, well, sure, influencer was the highest ROI because it's the lowest cost, right? A lot cheaper to hire an influencer than a production company. But I'm hoping or interested, like when you say that, was the math that you're doing, it was the highest ROI because it was performing the best within the media. So just thinking about the media, the media side of it, or are you saying, or did you guys actually factor in? I mean, was the actual production cost part of that equation that led to the highest ROI, or was that not even a factor?
It actually wasn't a factor. The production cost wasn't usually factored in. It was the cost of the media, and so so we could compare it across, all the different channels, and determine. So we were testing the channel and we were also testing the creative, but the production cost was not factored in.
Wow. Okay. So you heard it here, folks. Welcome back to Generation Influence, a podcast focusing on the movers and shakers working behind the scenes in influencer marketing and e-commerce. I'm your host, Bill Hildebolt, one of the co-founders of gen.video, a leading platform in the influencer marketing space focused on advanced analytics and e-commerce outcomes. Today's guest is Andree Smyth of the Ambr Group. Andrea, tell us about yourself.
Hi, Bill. Nice to be here today with you. So for me, my career has been focused on executing growth-driving strategies for brands, both in-house and at media planning agencies. And in all these roles, I've really focused on delivering against revenue and profit targets using best-in-class marketing plans, new product launches, and retail execution. I think one of the things that I really like to say is, like, I love working on brands I'm passionate about and projects that I'm passionate about, and making sure that they really consider the consumer at the core of everything. I started my marketing career in media planning. I was working on launching new TV shows for NBC. And then I moved over to spirits brands like Kettle One, Smirnoff, Captain Morgan, Sky Vodka. I did a lot of sports sponsorships, partnerships with them, events, and traditional media platforms from TV all the way to digital and influencer. I was working with a lot of brand managers and really ensuring that their media plans delivered against the individual goals of the brands they ran, using unique use of content and channel. And I decided, after working with a few brands on the agency side, I really wanted to move over to the brand side so I could be more involved in that strategy setting and also ultimately in the decision making. So from there, I actually moved and started working with Bayer. And at Bayer, I was working on Midol and Aleve, where I developed marketing plans and content, and also innovation strategies to drive our brand growth. And most recently, I just moved over to the Ambr Group about a year and a half ago. And there, I'm building and growing e-commerce brands. And we're leveraging Amazon's third-party marketplace to grow brands, essentially, and create them. We're really focused on product development, geographic expansion, and PPC campaigns to drive profitable growth here. So kind of a diverse background, but all in the marketing space and really focused on brand side.
That is truly a diverse background. There's a lot we'll get to unpack, and I'm really excited about it. One of the themes that we've had in the podcast is, when we have folks on who have been across sort of multiple verticals as you have. So you got entertainment, spirits, CPG, and now at the Ambr Group, we'll obviously learn more about the kind of products you're supporting there. But I'm going to guess it's even taking you further afield in sort of the verticals, if you will, the product types that you've supported. I always like to ask this question: do you feel like marketing is when you're thinking about the different verticals, are you using basically the same tactics or the same rules? So is it very much like one science and discipline? Or do you feel like every time you're in a new vertical, you have to really completely rethink everything, throw out the rules, and relearn that industry to be effective? So is it one industry or is it 100 industries?
I think it varies. I think you definitely can apply the things from category to category. I think my background in media planning gave me such a strong foundation working on the brand side and to enable to communicate with my agency partners to speak intelligently about what are the things we're measuring, from reach to frequency to awareness. The fundamental things you're measuring are all the same across categories. But I think you do need to know the intricacies of your category in order to be successful. And I think a theme across my career has been regulation, right? Spirit, health, and products, OTC products. They all have their individual regulations, and some channels you can't actually advertise on, or there are certain things you need to consider within your advertising to make sure you're, meeting those certain regulations. And I think even on Amazon now, you have a little bit more leeway about what you can say, but you also need to work within Amazon's rules and regulations. So I think that's something that you need to know your category really well in order to avoid, mishaps that might, hurt your brand's profitability, hurt your brand's growth. But I think a category expert is always helpful, but I think you learn something from each category that you could bring innovation to a new category, which I personally like to do. Is there something I did in the spirits category that I could apply to the OTC category? And I think there are things that you can do to bring new, innovation to category. I think influencer probably is a really good example of that. It was probably done really early on some of those other categories like spirits, and, OTC wasn't really dabbling in it, but that was something, at Bayer, we really tried to integrate more into our brand plans, as the regulation got a bit looser, and influencers were willing to work with you on that regulation.
That's great. I think there's a couple of themes there that are pretty interesting. One, this idea of existing within a regulatory or a rules-based framework, and how you can actually use that to be to a competitive advantage if you understand the rules of the game that you're playing, and you understand all the things that you're able to do, and the things that if you cross this line you're going to slow yourself down dramatically, is actually a bit of a competency that's come up a few times. And the other thing that's interesting too, right? Like you talk about something like influencers, we're definitely seeing, right, some of the obvious influencer categories. We're now seeing people that are outside, or brands that are outside that sort of core, coming in more and more. And I think of like B2B companies wanting to leverage influencers. And it's something we've talked to some other guests about, and how that changes the nature of influencer marketing. I think it means it's becoming just part of everyone's toolkit, which is great. But I think that's exciting. The other thing, actually, going back to your, your first answer, that I also think's interesting, and hopefully we'll have a chance to double back on this, is this idea of somebody like an Ambr, and we'll talk about more about what Ambr does, right? I feel like 5 or 10 years ago, it would have been, they just were hiring a company like that, and e-commerce companies were all about being e-commerce companies and being e-commerce experts. And today there's such an infiltration of people with marketing backgrounds kind of really inside those companies and leading. And so the idea of e-commerce as a discipline that's separate from marketing, those lines are really blurring. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be harder and harder to be a successful marketer in the future if you don't really understand e-commerce. That was definitely not true 5 or 10 years ago. The e-com departments and the marketing departments were two very different things.
Yeah.
But they have now completely collided, and you're a living example of that, which is really cool. Okay. So that's great. So we've got the foundation laid as some topics we want to talk about. Tell us, we got to know you at gen.video and during your time at Bayer. So tell us more about that. What brands were you on, and what was your role on those brands?
Yeah, so I started off on the Aleve brand as an intern, MBA intern, and then started working more on like the financial side. My first year was really understanding the business, what drove the business, what marketing drivers like really drove our sales volume, and that really set like a really great foundation for me. A year later, I transitioned into the marketing role on that team. There I worked with, some of our partner agencies on creative platform development and our media planning with our media team at Bayer, and essentially was, putting together a marketing plan to drive growth for the brand and really defend against, some of our top competitors, um, Tylenol and Advil at the time. So it was really about understanding the business and what was going to drive it in the future, and putting the creative execution in place. And obviously, everything we put any dollar behind, we wanted it to deliver a positive ROI. So measurement became a really big theme during my time at Bayer, ensuring all our media was measurable, and it was all ROI positive. So we were constantly, quarter over quarter, really reevaluating where we were spending our dollars, and digital in particular was something that, came to the forefront as, the highest ROI channel. And influencer was the creative actually that it turned out to be the most ROI positive on those channels. And so we did run a lot of tests to really determine what creative was working best. And that was something where I got particularly interested in influencer, was seeing that how much ROI it gave back to the brand. I then moved over to the Midol brand, where I was the brand manager, but also the innovation manager. So kind of a dual role. And, there I did very similar things than Aleve, but on a smaller scale. We had smaller budgets. We were very digital focused, and we had a young Gen Z audience, and millennial audience. So different channels we were using to reach our core consumer. And we had to be really unique to stand out in that category. So, took all the things that I did on the Aleve brand, and brought them to Midol and kind of rethought about how we would reach this younger consumer, and leverage unique use of channel and content.
I obviously love hearing that the influencer, even, just through the lens of being the content and the creative, was the highest ROI. And I don't know if this is like the cynic in me or the, or hearing the critical audience. I'm curious actually. You could say that and say, well, sure, influencer was the highest ROI because it's the lowest cost, right? A lot cheaper to hire an influencer than a production company. But I'm hoping or interested, like when you say that, was the math that you're doing, it was the highest ROI because it was performing the best within the media? So just thinking about the media, the media side of it, or are you saying, or did you guys actually factor in? I mean, was the actual production cost part of that equation that led to the highest ROI, or was that not even a factor?
It actually wasn't a factor. The production cost wasn't usually factored in. It was the cost of the media, and so so we could compare it across, all the different channels, and determine. So we were testing the channel, and we were also testing the creative, but the production cost was not factored in.
Wow. Okay. So you heard it here, folks. So to my mind, the way I'd think about that is once you factored in the actual lower production cost, the IRI differential would have even been higher.
Yeah.
And I do think it's interesting because I do think in most media tests like this, the people running the math, I'm just going to say it that way, are not typically thinking about the production cost differential. The other thing I think about influencer, I don't know, I'm going to ask you actually if you would agree with this, because this is something, in my, thought leadership babbling, I say a lot, but honestly, I've never done a time and material study on this. The other thing I say is it's actually easier to work with influencers because they know the product and the category to a degree. They're off to a running start. where when you work with a professional production company, again, unless it's a production company you've worked with years and years and been very consistent, and therefore they know the product, you actually have to teach them the product. You have to teach them what are the insights that we're trying to communicate to the audience, where with an influencer, there's just less of that. They're more turnkey. You don't, as a brand manager, I remember the days when brand managers would go on set to shoot a TV commercial, and they'd be gone sometimes a week or more.
Yeah.
They'd have to travel to the set, and you couldn't talk to them. They just were out of bounds for that time. That's a huge cost. Nobody travels to where the influencer is shooting, their sponsored video. And so, we just think about that time savings. To me, it's huge, and no one thinks about that. But I don't know. Do you agree with that, or do you think I'm like selling something that's not real?
No, I definitely agree with that. I think that the one thing I would say is I really think it's so important I think there's a process to finding influencers that really do know your brand and know your category and use it. Like, I was always a big proponent is like, I think if we spend time on the upfront looking for influencers to actually use our products and actually have a passion for them, like that will come through in the content, and on the back end, there'll be less time, right? Less time trying to get the right information or make it more clear. So I always wanted to find those influencers that were brand experts. It takes a little bit more time, and maybe it might be a little bit more expensive. I mean, we worked with influencers like Olivia Culpo, but she was talking about Midol organically on her social channels. Like, that was some value that we couldn't like ignore. So I think that's the one like thing I would say is important, is make sure they do know the product and use it, because there's a lot of influencers out there and they may say they use it, but it's you want to really make sure that they have that passion for it.
Yep. All right. So speaking of passion, let's circle back, because you yourself said you always wanted to work on things that you were passionate about. And I think, if we had a bunch of teenagers, high school kids watching this video, they'd be like, all right, I can see how she could get excited about TV shows. I can see how she could get excited about working on these exciting spirits brands and, all the great like marketing stuff that goes into that. But Aleve and Midol, really? Like, all right, so tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, so it was interesting when I interned at Bayer. It was kind of exploratory. I hadn't really like considered OTC medicines like an area I wanted to go into, especially like had I worked in spirits. I was like, I think I want to go in spirits again, but on the brand side. And when I worked at Bayer, I thought it was a good opportunity to get, some different category experience. And when I left that internship, one of the reasons I decided to return full time was I felt like we were actually helping people, making a difference in people's lives. You listened in focus groups to people who used to leave, and the impact it made on their life, whether it was to go out to travel with their children, or to even like get out of bed in the morning. These people were in extreme pain where they couldn't even like do the day-to-day activities like maybe me and you take for granted. And I think that was like the part that really drove me to my passion in the category. And I think with Midol in particular, we were innovating to create platform, around women's health. We weren't just thinking about selling more products. We wanted to really help like women, understand their bodies, understand their cycles better. And so I think that was something that I always wanted to integrate into our marketing. Was it's not just about selling products. It's really about purpose. And that's, I think, what really motivated me in that category. And it's something I thought I could never get passionate about. I ended up being extremely passionate about, and women's health is something that I continue to kind of fight for in my personal endeavors and conversations and things like that. And so that's kind of what gave me purpose in that role.
I love it. Well, and during our pre-call, you chatted about a couple of things that you guys did at Midol, specifically around relaunch and some initiatives that I think flow out of the things you were talking about. Can you just tell us a little bit more about those? Because they were really exciting.
Yeah, so when I was working on Midol, we had just relaunched the packaging to just appeal to a new generation. The packaging was old and dated, and for the initial launch, we really were like very product focused. We wanted that new user to come in, we wanted them to understand the product. But for year two, I really wanted to evolve past that product messaging and um, say something else in the category that was a bit different and capitalize on that moment of period positivity, women. I think there was a lot of conversations during that time around how women's health, and so we had a limited budget for communications. We really needed to make every dollar work, and we wanted that messaging to break through. We saw, like, when we did some brand equity studies, that really data suggested we needed to make a connection with the consumers through purpose, like I mentioned, to build awareness and convert those new users. Women weren't just, buying products that didn't stand for anything. We had to stand for something, and we thought that could make, a big difference. So we decided to launch a purpose platform called No Apologies Period. It was meant to elevate the brand beyond just the product and really give us something to stand for. We leveraged press to drive awareness of our message and expand the reach through digital channels and influencer. And like I said, we saw we were in this moment of like gender equality and period positivity that we could tap into to give the brand a purpose beyond just, it works. And we also wanted to address this underlying tension that women really didn't feel comfortable talking about their periods. So Midol was this like secret, like this secret they kept in their purse or hid from everyone. And we didn't really want like people to feel uncomfortable talking about their periods. So we looked for kind of this, ownable insight, which was we saw that women were dismissing their period symptoms and like apologizing for them. So it's like, sorry, I'm bloated. Sorry, I can't come out tonight. I have horrible cramps. Sorry, like apologizing. And that's something you see women do even in the workplace, like apologizing for things that, really aren't even out of their control. And so that we saw like we wanted to help women stop apologizing for their periods, but we saw like a 5-year plan, like help women stop apologizing. Like, and in year one, we really wanted to focus on periods, but I think it has the potential to go further and, stop apologizing in general for things that are out of our control. So we ran a survey actually to see how much this was happening. We did men and women, and we did see there was a large discrepancy between apologizing, and women did apologize a lot more. It wasn't just like, a hunch. We decided to launch an integrated plan with a launch video where we used real women talking about their experiences with apologizing for their symptoms. We used media outreach to the press, social media teasers to really contextualize what we were talking about. And then this was the part that I was like, we have to do this because we can't just say there's a problem and do nothing about it. And we then partnered with influencers and media publications to help really give women the tools to stop apologizing. So we had different tips and tricks that, you could say instead of sorry. And the results are really outstanding. We got over a billion media impressions. We doubled our social following, doubled our engagement on social as well. And we ultimately saw a lift, and Midol was a brand they trusted, which was our goal. So it was really a great program. And I think it was like a purpose-driven program. And it wasn't just about selling products. It was about, helping women with a problem that we identified.
That's phenomenal. I'm clearly not the target audience, but I would say I absolutely feel like over the time span where you guys have been running this campaign, and again, Bear and gen.video work together, so maybe I'm overexposed to some of these marketing messages because of that. But it's certainly not a conscious thing on my part. But I have definitely noticed a destigmatization of period conversations, and I don't even describe it in a sea change. And what's also interesting, I think, very clearly, I feel like it was 5 or so years ago where there was a theme that I felt like kind of was out in the workplace around, women should stop saying I'm sorry in meetings. And it's funny because in my whole career, I learned very early on. So this is like 25 years or so ago when I first started working, don't apologize. Just nobody cares.
Yeah.
Fix it, fix it, do it right, but stop apologizing. So that was beaten into me as a young male professional decades ago.
Yeah.
And I feel like for women, it was a message that was received a little bit much more recently. And I've noticed that change too, that shift, right? Like we're not second
Yeah.
class citizens in the workplace. We're equal. And again, guys don't get ahead by apologizing. So why are women? And so, whether you were tuning into that insight or pushing that insight, irrelevant, right? Like that's what
Yeah.
good marketing is it's tied into the zeitgeist and it's pushing forward positivity and associating it with your brand. It's a brilliant job. I mean,
Yeah.
I all credit, like it's visible to me. And like I said, I'm not even the target market.
Yeah.
Um,
But yeah, I mean,
okay.
it's
Awesome.
definitely, I agree with you, like in the sense that I was guilty of it in the workplace as well. And I think it was something working on that campaign and, thanks to all the agency partners and other people there, they were involved at that campaign, couldn't done that without them. But it was, I think, really, like you said, I think we all had experienced it. A lot of women worked on that campaign. It was a campaign worked on by women. So I think that made it really special. Throughout the process, we had women involved from directors to creatives to influencers. So it really touched on everyone.
That's awesome. Wonderful. Okay, let's shift over to the Ambr Group. Tell us more about you guys, because I got a feeling some of the audience is probably not as familiar as they might be with a bear.
Yeah, so the Ambr Group is kind of in this category of Amazon aggregators. So we started buying brands that were sold on the Amazon third-party marketplace. And how that marketplace works is, me or you as individuals, we could start a mini brand and sell it on Amazon. All we need is a product. And Amazon has a fulfillment. It's called Fulfillment by Amazon. And you can send products to Amazon and start merchandising it and selling it. And so, probably like 5 to 10 years ago, many sellers started popping up on leveraging Amazon's third party marketplace and built amazing, great brands, $1 million brands in the marketplace. And then kind of aggregators came in and, started, these entrepreneurs wanted to, go and do something else, maybe start a new brand or wanted to sell their product to a company. So Amazon aggregators were kind of creating like the Bayer P&G model where they like buy a bunch of brands and use their, economies of scale to save on cost and become experts in things like PPC, product development, and supply chain. So all our brands leverage the Amazon third-party marketplace. We sell primarily on Amazon, leveraging Amazon's brand registry, and we're creating like little small brands with. So we have a variety of products from fitness to food storage containers to socks, and really we're kind of on Amazon. It always starts with the keyword search. So you think of something that you want and you type in keyword. So if you're looking for food storage containers, you type in that keyword and a bunch of products are going to pop up. Majority of those are likely sold on the third party marketplace of Amazon, where we control the price, we control the promotions, we control the content. We're just really leveraging Amazon to fulfill our product and obviously give us the search engine as well.
So I'm going to just pause. We've talked on other editions of the podcast kind of about this a little bit, but it's coming back. It's coming up again and again, and so I think the audience, maybe like, okay, this is an area that I need to understand better, which agree with. It's something we all need to understand, right? So first of all, like there's this phrase that, or this acronym that, FBA, like this is an FBA product, and that's fulfillment by Amazon. And so that's what,
Mm-hmm.
you mentioned. And so just to help the audience shortcut a little bit, which again means that, you're sending your product to Amazon. They're going to handle the shipping and some of those like hard warehousing type things that really weren't available to smaller companies, before this service. And then this other thing though about being a third party seller on Amazon, it really is a fundamental thing that people should understand because, if you're a bear, and again, you can correct me if any of this is wrong or no longer as true as it once was, but historically, Bear would sell a million, packages of Aleve or Midol to Amazon, and then Amazon is actually the retailer, and they're setting the price. They are, again, you may be doing a lot of promotional things yourself as Bear to help drive those sales, but actually the sellers, Amazon, they're setting the price, and so they have control over some of the things that are occurring. Whereas when you're a third party seller, like you said, you're controlling everything: price, promotion, content. And so it's not so much a partnership as it's just Amazon's fulfilling some specific back office type functions, and you're controlling everything else, which almost creates an advantage for those
Mm-hmm.
third party sellers. And again, not only are you've got like these entrepreneurs like nipping at the heels, and in some ways taking advantage of all the things that that a Bear and P&G and big brands have done for hundreds of years by understanding like where the big markets are, but there's even tactical advantages to being one of these smaller guys. Now, of course, there are other huge advantages that a Bear would have, but it's the playing field. I don't want to say it's unbalanced in a way that's clearly advantaging one side or the other, but this is a world where there's definitely some unique advantages for these small sellers.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to drill into a couple of things there. And first of all, I'm sort of curious, the brands that you guys are buying, are they mostly like American entrepreneurs? Or again, when we think about Amazon and like third party marketplace, I think a lot of us think, oh, it's all brands coming out of China. Like what's the reality of who's creating these small brands that an Ambr and other people are buying up?
Yeah, usually it's yeah, Americans, or we've worked with some English entrepreneurs. It could be from all around the world. I think it really depends. There are, the Chinese sellers do exist on the platform, but they aren't doing as much branding as possible. And so that could present an opportunity to someone like the Ambr Group, right? Because you have a really great product that you built from just a price and a product, right? And so there's so much more you could do with it by, creating a little mini brand around it, improving the content, making it appear more premium. So yeah, we don't really like in that sense, like it could be from anyone around the world. But most of our products are sourced from areas like China, India, Turkey. There's a variety of places we're sourcing products from. So our suppliers are in those countries. And often a lot of the individual sellers on Amazon are sourcing from those countries as well. So that kind of might be the misnomer that you're kind of talking about, is we are sourcing our products.
So the manufacturing is occurring.
Yeah.
But that's true of everyone. So
Yeah. I mean, really, like sellers are really the definition of, we're FBA is kind of called like a private label business. And so sellers are usually selling products they sourced from a third party manufacturer under their own brand. So say you're like, I really want to launch a line of travel containers that I can put my shampoo in. You could go to a supplier in China, look it up on Alibaba, and find a product and start selling it on Amazon. And even your supplier could, ship direct to FBA for you, and you just create the brand. So you put the label on it, you put the logo on it, you are working on the pricing, the marketing, the advertising. Like you said, you get complete control of everything. You're just using Amazon as your platform and your fulfillment center.
And so I don't think probably the average listener would appreciate just how easy it is to find a manufacturer in China that will create a product to your specs, even at relatively low volumes. Like, you're not talking about investing, typically, my sense is, millions of dollars, right? Again, if it's a complex product, you would be, but for a simple product, they will custom, you find the right manufacturer who's got the right equipment, they will custom configure that product to meet your needs. And then you said, like, they'll ship it directly to Amazon. So it is a world that is actually accessible to lots of people, and then they're taking advantage of it. Can you, and by the way, the other thing that's, I think, very interesting, right, is you're talking about private label. And in this context, private label means something different than, I think, what a lot of us in brand marketing think about, where it's, private label meaning like Kroger's house brand in the grocery store. There's a whole different set of criteria that you're using here, and I think you've made it very clear. But I did just want to highlight that we're not talking about private label in a grocery store. We're talking about private label the way you've defined it. Can you tell us a bit more about what the brand registry is? What does that, it sounds like sounds like a wedding registry or something, but I think it's not it's not a bridal registry, it's a brand registry. So tell us more about what the brand registry at Amazon is, what it does, how it functions, and why it matters.
Yeah, so I mean, like, ultimately, the best products on Amazon, while you could go get in any product from China, probably the best products on Amazon, the most successful, they're differentiated. They have something unique that is solving a consumer problem, and they have great ratings and reviews to support that. So Amazon Brand Registry is a tool that Amazon is now leveraging to help their sellers protect their products. So if you're registered and you can kind of file complaints against people that might be using your copyright, that might have copied your product and started selling it on Amazon. It's really to create like this trust and kind of protection to its sellers. And the brand registry actually gives you access to a lot of different tools as well, like their brand stores, Amazon Post, their videos and things like that. And they also have a set of representatives that can help you resolve issues. So when you go on Amazon, you can actually see, if you click on a product, you can kind of tell it's brand registered by, at the top, it will have its title, and then it will say the brand name. And that's how you kind of know it's brand registered. And these are like these mini brands that the Ambr Group is creating. And ultimately, some of these brands could go on to become bigger brands that are sold in Walmart, sold at brick and mortar. And I think this is the first step, is the Amazon Brand Registry, and then you can kind of see how it evolves in the future. But it really gives you that protection, because there are a lot of people that can just launch products and eat into your market share by just copying something or using one of your trademarks.
Yeah. It's interesting. I think, there's probably a perception in the greater traditional brand world, I suppose, where there'd be this fear is the end result of e-commerce, the destruction of brands, that it's all going to be around a keyword, and then whoever's got the lowest price, wins. And so what's the value of a brand in that? Nothing. And so, but I think you've got a very different perspective that I'm picking up through this conversation and our pre-conversation. And so maybe what it means to be a brand, or how you develop a brand, may be different than traditionally, but the value of brand is not going away. And by the way, the other implication, one of the things reasons I've come to that conclusion is, look, if Amazon thought that they could just control the world with Amazon Basics products, they wouldn't be building a brand registry and helping other people succeed in this way, right? Again, they would just be like, every product is an Amazon Basic, and we've got the lowest price. That's all you need to know. Game over. We win. It's the end of the world. So talk a little bit about, brand building, brand value, brand tools that, you can leverage on Amazon. What goes into a brand the way you guys think about it?
Yeah, I think ultimately, every product is not going to be a brand, but I think you can see from the Amazon perspective, the value of the brand is not going away. they are investing in things to help sellers create brands. So like I mentioned, brand stores is a really good tool that we love to use. Amazon Post is another really good tool. It's kind of their social media that they kind of Instagram type thing where you can show your product in use, lifestyle imagery. Amazon Inspire is like on the Amazon app now as the second tab. And I haven't really even spent that much time on it, but I think it's an interesting tool. It's kind of their TikTok for the future. Video is something you're seeing integrated across the platform. There's 1 to 2 video ads on every page one of when you search. And they're even starting to integrate like the video into the actual main image on the SERP as well. So lots of cool opportunities. And you're seeing Amazon investing in like retargeting tools and customer engagement for sellers. So they want to bring, new users to your brand. And that's like fundamentally what a brand is, right? Like reaching consumers, reaching your target audience. And you're seeing also a lot of like people directing off Amazon advertising to the platform as well, which Amazon incentivizes. So you can definitely see Amazon sees the value of the brand, and those products that are differentiated definitely are seeing success with that. So I don't think every product on Amazon will become a brand, but I do think you can leverage that platform to build a really strong brand that could be sold, throughout the U.S. And globally.
Phenomenal. That's great. That's a great rundown of a lot of the tools and tactics. I mean, there are so many levers now. And so it's incumbent on all of us to be educated on what they are, how they work. And of course, I'm a huge fan of the idea that video continues to infiltrate. I mean, Amazon was so early to video and has been pushing it for so long, but they continue to because there are more use cases like the search ads, and we know that is a huge emphasis of theirs. And of course, as gen.video, we love to see that. Tell us a bit more about the Ambr Group, some of the core products, categories where you guys have seen success. What are those characteristics you guys are looking for when you think about what to launch next? Just give us make it real for us. Like where can I find an Ambr product?
Yeah, so we've really had like a category agnostic approach to acquiring brands. So we sell across multiple categories. Some of the big ones are home and kitchen, beauty, sports and outdoors. And our core products are always changing, based off of demand, performance, and new acquisitions. So, search volume goes up in one category, we're pivoting and focusing more on that, looking for acquisitions in that area. But some of the most successful ones that are always floating to the top in our organization are, like I mentioned, food storage containers. So, the organization trend on TikTok, we're helping feed that. Socks is another big one, surprisingly, that we've seen a lot of success in. And hair care tools is another one. So, for scissors to other, beard trimming tools and things like that. And, what we really look at, what made these products successful are really having, like I mentioned earlier, differentiated products at great prices really win on Amazon. So you want to have the best, product COGS, you want to have the most unique products. So like we talked about earlier, like working to make sure they're differentiated. And the other thing is we really want to make sure our products have great reviews and unique benefits to help them stand out from the competition. And this is kind of what we look at when we're looking what to launch next. Keyword volume growth, I would say, is one of the big things that I'm looking at, and macro trends I think are always going to inform future product development. I think the main difference when we think about launching things between like us and a traditional CPG is like we're able to innovate a lot quicker, and we can leverage the data from Amazon to create products with our suppliers and get them to market with, not all the layers in the organization. And obviously our products are less, regulated than some, but I think that's been what I've really enjoyed working at the Ambr Group is, working on a product that solves the consumer need and getting it to market in 3 months when they really need it. So So that's something that has been really exciting working in kind of smaller startup nimble organization. We can solve consumer problems a lot faster, and we're constantly looking at the macro space to figure out where we can solve those problems.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. What jumps out for me, it's interesting. There's a podcast we've done. It's not live yet, so I don't know if you'll go live first or this woman Karen Evans that I interviewed, who actually worked at P&G, and she worked on a brand called My Black is Beautiful, which is for textured hair, which in the old days people thought of that was black women's hair, or I guess black people's hair, but now they're sort of realizing, well, no, actually a lot of people with really curly hair, right?
Yeah.
Who and that population is growing as the U.S. diversifies, and so that's going from a niche market to a macro market. And one of the things I sort of realized while I was chatting with her is, a lot of success is actually figuring out the trends and where things are going and getting there first.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what you guys are doing, and that's exciting, and that's never going to change. That's never going to go away. So who can spot the trends fastest and tap into them, which is actually what you did at Bear with no no apologies period. And so and again, whether that's tracking to a behavioral insight or a product need, so it's I think that's a big takeaway for the space. Wherever you are, you got to be paying attention to what the consumer needs, and that is what focusing on the consumer means. I am sort of curious, just with the Ambr Group, are there like 100 aggregators out there, or are there 2 aggregators? Like, just give us a sense for the audience, again, trying to understand this world of Amazon and third-party sellers. Like, where is the evolution of the aggregator space in your mind?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of aggregators. I don't know the exact number. I do think the industry is consolidating a little bit, but there are a lot of big ones that you've heard of, maybe Thrasio and Perch, and there's a lot of smaller ones as well. But yeah, definitely the 2001 was a big 2021 was a big year for Amazon aggregator investment. So I think we'll definitely see how the industry evolves. It's still a really new space, but I think like as a brand manager, I really think about my competition a lot differently. I'm letting the CEO and leadership team think about the aggregator competition. But for me, it's really, as a brand manager, we're thinking about our competition is those products on the SERP. Who's getting the number one search result, who's getting the bestseller badge, who has the best ratings and reviews. It doesn't really matter whether they're owned by an aggregator or not. They could be, but it might be useful to know if they are. But I think ultimately you want to build products that are going to set you apart from whoever, because it could be literally anyone. It could be a P&G that owns that product. It could be an individual seller. It could be someone in China selling. So you really just need to make sure that you have the best unit economics, the best differentiated product to stand out. So that I don't get too bogged down in that industry, but I think it's interesting to follow. There has been a lot of investment in the space, and it will continue to evolve. And we'll see who ends up at the top. But I think we're really building products to position us well into the future.
Love it. All right. Well, for such a future seer, I do want to ask. I got one more serious question, then I got a fun question for you. The serious question is, because again, you're a bit of a seer. What do you see in the future of influencer marketing? What are you excited about when you look at the industry?
Yeah, I think for me, I'm been super excited about how influencers are working with brands to co-create products. I think that is ultimately how you get that passion that I was talking about earlier out of an influencer. I think a really good example that I've seen recently is Alex Earl. She's a big TikTok star, and she is notoriously known for, talking about the products she loved. She talked about this product. It was a pre-workout supplement from RSP Nutrition. I think they're an Amazon brand that started on Amazon. She has her Amazon storefront, puts all her products on there. They smartly partnered with her to create a unique flavor called the Berry Elixir, using her name. And they also created, so they had created the powder and an energy drink. I mean, it's all over my social channels. And, you know, I even bought the product. Like, I think that passion she had in her videos for that product, for that brand, and how well it worked, I think then they saw that and decided to partner with her to create 2 new products that sold out immediately. And, you know, now they're restocked. But I just saw the other day that they're launching into Walmart with the same product. So
Wow.
I think that's like the future is co-creating with influencers. I think I would love to do something like that. Flamingo was another really good example. They created something with Ashley Graham, and they created a unique product that was like it was as simple as it was a different color. They created a little bundle pack with all her favorite products from Flamingo, sold it online, and partnered with Target to sell it in store. Ashley Graham's all over Target, you know, ads and things like that. So I think retailers even are excited about this, and it can help you sell in your products to retailers, especially your new products, right? So I think innovating with influencers is the future, I think, for the Ambr Group potentially, or even big product, you know, big brands like P&G and Bayer. Like, I think there's a lot of opportunity there. So that's definitely going to be a space I'm going to be exploring, and you know, hopefully others do too.
That's awesome. I think you've nailed a big macro trend, and I want to say I think Alex Earle is quite the phenomena. And as the sort of like the representative aspirational good times girl, I have this secret suspicion. I mean, that, you know, because she's always getting dressed up to go out for a big night. And then, you know, and then we see the videos the next day where it was like she partied too hard and she had a really big night. I secretly suspect that she's cutting these nights off way early, because there is no way that you can be as productive and put together and, you know, and clearly a smart businesswoman the way she is and party all night. I mean, maybe you can when you're 20, whatever she is, but I secretly suspect there's a lot less partying and a lot more thoughtful business work going on with that woman, because otherwise she is truly superhuman.
Well,
Anyway,
she's also like 22, so she does have a lot more energy than us.
She definitely does. Either way, she does. But if
Yeah,
she's
she's
truly
great.
partying as hard as she appears to be, that is really impressive. I can't do it anymore. All right, so here's my one for fun. I'm going to totally put you on the spot. Name the mentor or person you have worked with who has had the biggest impact on your career, and why?
I would say my manager at Bayer, her name was Lisa Perez, and she really let me own the Midol brand. I was one person working on the Midol brand with 100 years of history, and she really gave me like the autonomy to run that brand, while supporting me when I needed, you know, advice and, you know, additional insight into things. And, you know, her experience always gave me a new perspective on something. So she just really, I think, gave me the confidence that I can run a brand, I can innovate on a brand of that scale. And so ultimately, I think she just really enabled my career, and I would definitely always love to work with her again. She's a great leader, a great manager, but also she gets it. She is evolving with the times. She knows digital media. She knows influencer, and she's always willing to try something new. And that's how we got like so much approved for Midol. We got to do a lot of fun things. We got to launch new products because we wanted to move quickly. We knew that a lot of the fundamental things I talked about in this call, like we moved quickly, we adapted to trends, and you know, I couldn't have done it without her in such a large organization to help sell it up through the leadership. So it was a great partnership, and definitely loved working with her, and she'll always be a mentor to me.
That is awesome. I love that shout out. I love, you know, you said she let me own this 100-year-old brand, and that just triggered something for me where there's been a few times in my career where somebody's given me an opportunity. I'm like, I can't believe you're letting me do this with so much freedom. And I think those are literally the moments where we become our best and our greatest, when you have this sense of the weight of a responsibility that you've got, but the trust of somebody above you that, but don't worry, I know
Yeah.
you've got it. And those are career changing moments. So I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, it's great.
All right. Well, this has been an amazing conversation. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. I know the audience got a ton out of it. Thanks everyone who's listening for tuning in. We will see you next time on Generation Influence. Thanks.
Thanks.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. New episodes of Generation Influence drop every Wednesday, so be sure to check us out and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. You can find information on next week's guest in the description below. Hope to see you then and there.